Thanks very much for having me. I'm just getting over my last 2-year-old's cold, so just bear with me if I cough a lot. I'm sorry for the mic and the huge coughing. So I'm the Chief Technology Officer for DHI, for the Digital Health and Care Innovation Centre. We're funded by Scottish Government to help with health and care service transformation using digital technologies. We're primarily a service design and whole system change organisation. I'm pretty much the only technologist in the organisation because we work in all the ways we work to work with Scottish industry, and we want the market to be the ones developing technologies, and so it's my job to translate them and effectively, reflecting on what colleagues have said, act as a bridge between customers in health and care that are not very good at articulating their needs and how technology can help them. So we act as that bridge. So we run a capability called the DHI Exchange, which is basically a kind of knowledge exchange function. There's websites, etc. You can just Google DHI Exchange and you'll find all the materials. And that's a mixture of support for design, a team of designers and analysts that are used to the slightly crazy atmosphere and environment in health and care, which can be utterly impenetrable to a new company, so we can act in that regard. A lot of exchanging around impact, so we have lots of stories about previous successes and case studies that can help people learn and grow, and then fundamentally exchanging data. The single biggest issue in health and care, and if you're thinking about digital health and care, is not robotic surgery or drones or any of the kind of shiny bits. It's we can't get data from A to B safely and effectively. And it happens all over the system. Stories of care homes who have a resident with dementia and they don't know that person has dementia because no one gave them that piece of information. So that's the reality of a lot of our health and care systems. Is some very simple data sharing issues have never ever really been resolved. So we do a lot of data exchange work to demonstrate the art of possible to work on those data sharing challenges. My slides clipped a bit. So we've done a lot of work, lots of projects. We've been in existence for 9 and a bit years. I've been with DHI since day one. This is a set of do's and do nots for commissioners. So this is for health and care audiences who are often very attracted to the shiny and will go for the app. Let's get an app. And then bring that app or that product into their environment and try and kind of wedge it into their old way of working and bolt it on with staples and then yell and get really angry when it doesn't prove cost effective, it doesn't create impact. That's largely because it doesn't integrate, they don't change enough to actually take advantage of the technology. Also, health and care is quite slow moving, very risk averse. You said you almost went into healthcare. If a new startup came to me today, I would be saying, don't start with healthcare. I would be saying, go and cut your teeth in other industries, and then when you've got something, just like we've heard from colleagues, something you've got a bit of size, you've got a bit of muscle, then come to us because you need that, and you need to be able to sustain some change unfunded in the healthcare environment in quite a lot of cases. So from a commissioning point of view, we're trying to help health and care service owners think about resilience and scalability, not about individual products and apps and services. So trying to get them away from apps and devices to platforms, effectively. I don't mean platforms in that everyone's got a platform sense of the word. From a marketing point of view, I mean platforms as in providing or procuring infrastructure that many different developers can connect to and accelerate their development and integration activities using. So a lot of our work is trying to shift that onus and create enabling infrastructures. We do a lot of co-design work. We've run probably about 120 projects. This is a meta-analysis of our first 50 or so projects. This might be dermatology apps for skin issue sampling. It might be diabetes self-management tools. It might be breastfeeding peer support tools. You name it, we've done it from a co-design point of view, from a user research point of view. And each of those projects, we try and help industry or academia or health and care bodies as that kind of glue in the middle that helps everyone figure out the common language and helps surface those user requirements. These are the meta requirements. These are the requirements that no products solve, because these requirements are system issues. how do I tell my story once? That is pretty much the health and care requirement from the citizen point of view. How do I not fill in repeat forms? How do I not get asked the same questions over and over again? How do I not get dozens of different organizations assessing me, asking for the same thing over and over and over again? So if I was starting up in this environment, I would be saying, whatever you're doing, think about how what you're doing fits into an ecosystem and cooperates in such a way that you're not asking people to use yet another login, to use yet another portal, and instead try and fit into the infrastructure in play. On the right-hand side, this is a piece of work we've done around social determinants of health. So your health outcomes are more than just a product of what the doctors and nurses do, your clinical care. Your health outcomes are a result of economic, social, physical, behavioral, and clinical factors. And around the outside of that pie chart, what we've done over the last 9 years is we've mapped about 220 different personal data item categories against the determinants to show where the emerging data set lies. So it might be your driver's license, your address, your work history, your retail habits. And these things are increasingly data rich in the industrial IoT era. We're increasingly getting these sorts of data sets from consumer systems, but no one's binding them together effectively to help inform proactive and predictive healthcare. I'm convinced that Tesco holds more information about pre-diabetes than the NHS does, but no one is capitalizing on it. And so a lot of our work is thinking about this telling my story once type idea, thinking about the need for resilience and platforms and scalable data sharing capabilities, and then thinking about this huge quantum of data that is never leveraged in health and care context. And this is why we hang out with Bill. What are the privacy-preserving things that can mediate those sorts of environments? Because it's not going to be government big databases, because that'll get shot in the head and put out to pasture very, very, very quickly politically. No one's going to let the government aggregate that kind of data. So who can? It's highly unlikely that we're going to be happy with the big tech giants doing it in most cases. So for us, the answer is quite simple. The citizen wants to tell their story once. The citizen is involved in all these interactions. How do we give the citizen the power and the tools to allow them to curate that data and use it in a privacy respectful way or not? And I think that is the route that we're looking to stimulate. So thinking in terms of research journeys, this is a kind of ecosystem kind of summary. You'll see this red X here. Anyone remember national ID conversation? What was it, 15, 20 years ago? Remember what happened? Yeah. We are not going to knit together all the public sector systems into one super Estonia or Finland style X road and give you a single portal and a single identity. We are not culturally equipped in ethical, privacy, or governmental or political terms to do that. So we are interested in untethered approaches, things that are citizen-held, where we have agency over these transactions. And increasingly, we invest in, I don't mean invest in a, I'm just right where I'm in an entrepreneurial room, I don't mean invest in an Archangel's type of investment, I mean from a public sector commissioning point of view, we procure and develop different kinds of systems that allow citizens to control data and to then integrate those systems into clinical systems and consumer systems. So for example, the Health Data Exchange is a platform that you can go and look at on our website. You go and look at the DHI Exchange pages. That is effectively a developer-friendly environment, APIs and toolkits that you can use to connect to a data exchange, and that data exchange does one basic thing: single identity, single consenting capability, and allows the citizen to agree or not to structured data being passed between anything that connects to that platform. Personal data store, similar sort of concept, except it's much more of a repository and a headless experience that sits there and allows the citizen to accrue data and reuse it across different transactions, across different public agencies. Shared ledgers, this is an infant thing for the health and care environment, the kind of distributed ledger and some of these sorts of systems that we've spoken about. We don't do as much work in this because in many situations if I went into a IT and e-health environment and started talking about this, I'd lose the room in about 4 seconds. They're just not quite there yet. So we're tending to focus on cloud centralized solutions for now, appreciating some of the security ramifications of those choices. But we are definitely interested in people being able to take other sectors' privacy-preserving distributed methods and bringing them to us if you've already got something, reasonably mature and you've got a bit of muscle and you think you can survive what could be a 5 or 10 year journey in health and care before you see any material impact. I thought I heard from others the need for continuous user research, the need for user requirements analysis. Again, in health and care, we are a relatively unintelligent customer from a technology point of view. We don't know how to ask. We don't know how to get the most out of technology in the way we commission. So we do quite a lot of work. And this may seem incredibly basic to people who are working in other industries, but a lot of the DHI exchange methods are providing a safe place where industry can come in on DHI's invite and health and care partners can come in, and there's no contracts and there's no direct relationships between the parties. And then we basically guide people through joint exercises where industry can understand need and health and care commissioners can understand the art of the possible and understand how to articulate what they want. So the kind of projects we want are provocations where we're not trying to build the solution, we're trying to build a proof point. I heard someone saying, I think it was Jamie earlier, build a proof point. And what we want is we want doctors, nurses, medical directors, e-health leads, whoever it is, to look at what we've done and go, I didn't know you could do that. Well, it's not that. This is what it is. We want that spark moment when they say, right, now I understand what's possible. Here's the real deal, and I think this is achievable. And that's the kind of moment some of the kind of entrepreneurs I've heard have described is you trying to get to that moment, but sometimes you need to educate your customer and you need to get them into a place where they can articulate it properly. So a couple of journeys. So health data exchange as a piece of infrastructure. This is a dermatology flow that we developed across the 14 health boards in Scotland. Sorry, it's very small, but you get the slides afterwards so you can pour through it at your own leisure. This is probably the first mapped, digitally savvy depiction of how dermatology works in Scotland. And it is centered around the emerging need for patients to be able to take pictures of themselves and get them into the hands of clinicians in a safe and private way. And at the moment, up and down the land, GPs are taking out their personal phones, taking a photo of your skin condition on your body, emailing it to themselves, and then uploading it into the kind of creaking NHS system. I'm not going to point any fingers at which GPs are doing this, but we all know that they must be doing that. Has anyone here WhatsApped a nurse or a GP friend and asked them for a bit of clinical advice? So we're all doing this using these tools because no one has really given us better versions of those tools to do it in a safe, governed way where we're not leaking data all over the world as a result of doing that. So I thought that would be an interesting use case. Interestingly, that digital co-management layer in the middle, when we talk about health data exchange, typically the NHS would buy a product that does this end-to-end. Someone would come to them with a vertical stack of technology and say, do this, and then it will solve your issues. But the problem is doing that for dermatology alone is not going to be cost effective and it's not going to scale well. We need to do it for a whole bunch.
Really sorry to interrupt. Okay, the people in the back, just maybe mind the conversation. I actually have your going on. I'm not sure who it is exactly, but yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. But
no, thank you. So the data exchange in the middle, it needs to be able to mediate lots of different types of digital interactions. There's no point in building out all that infrastructure just to get picture from A to B, when in the neighboring clinic, they're wanting blood glucose readings to do the exact same thing. And someone else is wanting a hypertension reading, and someone else is wanting a self-assessment, and someone else is wanting some breastfeeding data. So it's just hugely wasteful for 42 different companies to come to the NHS with each one with their own complete stack of technologies, and we need to do better than that. So we're here to offer bridging technologies that are commissioned and owned and governed by health and care services that can act in those bridge roles. And it's a bit of a learning curve, because most companies are told they need to have control of their full stack of technology. Well, from a health and care commissioning point of view, increasingly we don't want that. We need you to use reusable platforms in an ecosystem. And this is the result of that work. So this has gone live in 8 health boards and being used thousands and thousands of times now. So we do get somewhere. It just took 6 years. So it's slow going, but we do get there. COVID. So we use the same data sharing platform for the COVID response. This is 2 years of my life that I can't even remember anymore. But we built the test result delivery and contact tracing systems for the entire country and rolled it out in 41 days from scratch, from nothing. But that was because we had a health data exchange platform already plumbed in, already integrated into hospital systems, already integrated into GP systems, all that gumph that defeats most companies. These sorts of platforms are already in place. So then when we got industry development partners, Scottish SMEs, I must add, they came in and they did quite small, niche, focused pieces of software development that gave us the tools we needed for the different users, and we got those into the field incredibly quickly. And iteratively, as you can see, there were lots of different versions of things that needed to be deployed. Just importantly, when we did this, you see this thing at the bottom here, we designed in parallel a digital self-service contact tracing system. I'm not sure if anyone in here got a positive COVID result during the peak of this and had to contact trace themselves using online tools. That was this. We channel shifted 64% of all contact tracing away from a phone call to people doing it themselves. And the interesting thing is, 75% of people who self-serve did it in the first 45 minutes after receiving a positive test result. Whereas contact tracing could take up to 50 hours to get in touch with you, professionally as a call. So we're probably about 80% of the data quality that you would get if a professional did it, but you get it in 45 minutes. So from a contact tracing point of view, when you're trying to stop spread, this is a much, much better result. So citizens, when given the right tools, with the right kind of plumbing that mediates the relationship and makes it consented and makes it trusted, can sustain our health and care system. So I think that's an important use case for anyone who's thinking around digital health and care. I've probably got about 2 minutes left, so I'll just very quickly rattle through a second concept, and what I should say is these infrastructures are available to play with if people want to. This is a piece of work around personal data stores, thinking about socializing and trying to get commissioners thinking in kind of end-tier architecture terms. So this is, again, quite basic for many of the techies in the audience, but this is us trying to translate and get people used to the idea of the separation of the layers of the technology and thinking about how we commission those as ecosystems. And these are, again, service maps that we worked up with people around frailty, older adults, multidisciplinary care. How do you get it so that the 3 charities, the council, the NHS, the housing people, the social security people are all cooperating around a single shared care record? And the answer is not a single government database, but a citizen-held personal data store, where each time a citizen goes through an assessment or a stage in their journey, they can then reuse the data that they curated as part of that step into the next step and into the next step. So you're not repeating yourself over and over again. You're sharing an increasingly sophisticated story on a consented basis at each step in your journey. And you're able to delegate it to your carer, who can do it on your behalf. And this is, again, Bill and the privacy preserving folk, we haven't quite cracked this. How do you tokenize and delegate and proxy to individuals for different purposes to allow us the equivalent of almost like a digital power of attorney? We don't want power of attorney. We want something a little bit simpler than that is just about your digital rights and the ability to act on behalf of another individual. And that's the kind of use case that we're seeing coming through in social care and integrated care. And these are kind of some visualizations we do with this was done with people in their 80s who were in these older adult and frail older adult care requirements. And this is the kind of interface they're looking for. Spatial, simple. They all want to understand who's doing what, because this person, in 5 years' time, there'll be about 40 nodes on this diagram. It's incredibly complex. huge numbers of people involved, and people want transparency and they want more control. Anyway, so these are the sorts of things we do. There are a set of infrastructures available on the DHI Exchange website, bottom right-hand corner. You can go on, there's a developer portal, you can register and get in touch with us, and if you want to play, please come and do so, and we can provide some of this infrastructure and some simulated data that you can use to cut your teeth on and show how whatever you're doing can cooperate in an ecosystem play. And there's a dynamic purchasing system that we have put live just before Christmas on Public Contracts Scotland, which is basically a multi-lot procurement framework for these sorts of data sharing infrastructures and for the services and products that can plug into them and be part of that ecosystem. That's me.